Welcome to the podcast Following Spirit Without Hesitation, Stories from Journeys of Deepening Trust. I'm Tanya, and today I have with me Maria. And already I'm thrown because I'm seeing one Maria Seraphina on your on your Zoom, but I'm also know that I can't pronounce your surname, so sorry. Do you mind if you can introduce yourself?
Of course, yes. So Maria of the Carrillo family is my given name of origin through my father's, and Maria Seraphina, Seraphina of the Seraphim comes from, maybe that's one of the stories we'll talk about today, a name that was given to me.
Lovely. Okay, thank you for that. I even had that question written down before we
Perfect.
started, and then I forgot to ask it. I thought I was being so good. Okay, thank you for that. So I know Maria, like many of us seem to know each other these days, is through social media, and we've been connected through that. We've had a few conversations, and I feel that the thing that struck me most about you, Maria, is your sincerity and your dedication to your work, to your path, and also that we seem to have, which I love when this happens, because we all hold our unique facets of what we bring, and we have very similar threads, and yet the medicine of how they express themselves is significantly different, I feel. At least we understand those differences anyhow.
Mhm.
So I so appreciate you agreeing to join me in this early stage of this podcast. Would you like to say anything else to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you for reaching out and having me here. I think these conversations are so important to help normalize what so many people are starting to go through right now with awakening and starting to learn how to listen with other faculties than just our tangible senses. And so, how do we develop that trust? And I feel like that's one of the pieces of work that I've done for myself and for others over the decades is how do we slow down to listen and to really start to feel the call or the song of our soul and the way all of creation communicates and weaves together. So that's part of my life's work, and I'm a mother. I'm in Canada, and I'm a beekeeper. I As much as we're also in a time of breaking down identities and boxes, I think words still hold an orientation point. So I use the word priestess or shamanka. You and I had a little conversation about that on Facebook once. That comes through from my Polish ancestors. And I guess somebody, you said earlier when we were speaking, like ordinary people, we're learning to listen with all of our full selves and normalize that for ourselves and others. And so that's part of my work in guiding people home to the fullness of their soul.
Beautiful. Oh, I love listening to you, Maria. So, as you know, the podcast is about following spirit without hesitation, though it doesn't always start off like that. I'm very aware of that. And we develop a process. We learn. This is the way that I can follow that, what, whatever our experience of that is. And I know that changes, over the years. So what is your process or your experience of following spirit, first of all?
Um, for me, it's finding stillness, and in that stillness, deeply listening. In my first step into spirituality, like consciously, was through yoga and Kundalini yoga in particular. And there's a word Shunya, which means to listen deeply. And that's beyond just the physical ears. And it's to come in and to listen to the body, to listen to the soul, to listen to the heart, and to start to discern what are outside voices and then what is the actual inner voice. And so for me, I do find that I'm not really good at sitting long term in meditation, but I do try to sit and I will write and ask questions and see what wants to come through. And then I find really just walking in nature, that's such a great place for me to tune out some of the other noise and really come into like what really wants to be known here. And I've just been really dedicated to that for a really long time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've seen that, which is one of the things that sort of has drawn me to you.
Mm.
So I know you've got lots of stories to share, Maria. Where would you like to start? What stories of your experiences of following spirit, following that guidance would you like to share?
I think, I mean, depending, let's see, we're all in different places on this journey. And so I just want to say first is that my path hasn't been obvious to me. And I often feel like I'm the last to know. Like,
Yeah.
why am I doing this? And I think that's a big key is like, okay, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I just know I need to do this. And then it usually makes sense in hindsight.
Hmm.
And so I had I went to these really great personal development courses that were just geared as 21st century leadership. They're still going, they're still called that. And it was really business oriented, but they had us, the premise was time, money, and energy are not what matters. Like, what is it that compels you each day to move forward?
Wow.
And so if I'm taking those out of the equation, then what's left is following the true essence of my soul.
Hmm.
And so that's like the starting orientation point, I guess, for how I listen to spirit and how it moves. It's like I made a grand declaration after my son was born. I was in British Columbia, in Nelson, BC, a very beautiful spiritual hippie type of place. And I opened my arms up to the sky and the mountains. And I said, like, I declare, like, I'm living my life according to my soul and not time, money, or energy. And I'm dedicated to following that pulse. And so from there, it was, I pick up that thread, like being in BC, having two kids. I knew I didn't want to be working for the government anymore. There was something deeper calling me. And I had done my yoga teacher training for Hatha and then for Kundalini. And there was something there. And I found a book. Um, Actually, when I went to Seattle for one of those personal development courses, there was a book in the hostel, The Mists of Avalon.
Oh, I
And
know that book.
right, yeah. And that sat on my shelf for a
Yeah.
really, really long time. It's huge, right? It's thick. It's a
Uh-huh.
thick book. And at this time, so I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm on maternity leave from my job with the government. And I'll just say I was living in Ottawa, in the capital in Canada, working for the government. I knew I wanted to leave. My son came. He was my second child. And while I was on maternity leave, we came to Nelson, BC, where my parents were living. And I really wanted to stay there. So I already had taken kind of a leap of faith. Like I needed to go back to my job, but I didn't, but I moved away. So something's got to give. Um, because I owed them money if I didn't come back, money I didn't have. And so while I was there and healing and listening in, I started going for a walk in the mountains every morning. Originally, I was doing these exercise videos that would make me so angry. So I'd be like yelling at my kids and frustrated. I'm like, this isn't working. So I started walking every morning instead into the mountains, and I'm reading this book. And there was this huge boulder in the middle of the forest, and I just would start to lay my body on it.
Mm.
And I did not understand what was happening. I did not understand why I started to feel all this grief and started to feel this longing for something that I couldn't touch, I couldn't name. And reading The Mist of Avalon, it speaks to the divine feminine, the feminine aspect of creation or of God, or they say goddess, but that feels limiting is in a word as a word to me. And I guess that was like one of my first big, more mystical following spirit, even though I'd been doing it in that more practical sense. But it's like, okay, I need to follow this thread. I need to start leaning into like what this is awakening within me. And eventually we moved back to Ottawa, and I found a woman online through some, synchronicity. Other women guided me to her. And her name's Elaine Doughty. I think she's from Wales originally, but she's in California, and she had Priestess Presence program. And I remember getting on a call with her, and I can't even begin to recreate her accent, but she's got this beautiful Welsh accent. And she's like, darling, you're home. You're not making any of this up. And I just started to cry, because I think that's the biggest thing, is that when we start to awaken and follow spirit and remember, it's like we just doubt, like, this can't be real. I'm making this up. I'm delusional, or I'm hearing voices. Like, there's no external orientation point or framework to make sense of what is happening inside
Yeah.
until we find the right mirrors. And so for me, like, stepping into that priestess path, like, that was, yeah, the book, the rock, the woods, nature, and then finding finally someone who reflected that back to me. Was a very, yeah, very, I'm feeling even now,
Yeah,
very,
I
very,
can
yeah, very
feeling
profound.
you feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so many things have unraveled since then.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful. And um and I really feel there's a few things that have come up while you were talking, and there's so much, I guess, what we would label spirituality hidden within more corporate or
Mm-hmm.
everyday sort of packaging. And I
Yeah.
just love it when we find that. It's like, oh, there it is,
Yeah.
you know? So I think these paths, if we're destined to find them, that, they will, we will
Right.
resonate. It's like you were talking earlier, we will resonate with this. There's a seed of something there that I'm curious about, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the people we meet,
Mm-hmm.
that, as you say, mirror back to us, but confirm that what we're experiencing is something real.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
because doubt is such a big part of it,
Yeah.
because of what we've been taught, I feel, what
Mm-hmm.
we've been conditioned to believe about the mystical path, the artist's
Mm-hmm.
path, and
Yeah.
and madness, right?
Exactly. Not just the doubt, but the centuries of being locked away or scorned or ousted or killed
Yeah,
for speaking something that isn't necessarily what contemporary society welcomes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wow. So you found somebody who embraced that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how did you start to, because I think a lot of people have a point like you were expressing, where those spiritual experiences, we're keeping them away from our everyday experiences, and it's like, and then at some point we start to be able to accept those spiritual experiences more, and then perhaps bring them into our more everyday reality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm just wondering if your next story kind of follows that path, or if there's something else you'd like to talk about.
Yeah. What's coming up, it's not quite that, but there's something that feels important too. And I don't think it's unique to me, is that following this path has been hand in hand with incredible fear. And the fear did not make sense to me at first. And the fear had been with me since I was a very young child. And what I learned over the years is that the fear became is like my greatest ally. It's actually what is calling me forward on the path.
Wow.
And the fear holds the key to unlock the next step over and over and over again. And so incorporating into my life was like this dance of like terror versus, okay, that's what I need to face next. And even though I had had this knowing, this remembrance, there was a safety in it. It was more conceptual, I guess, in some ways, or internal, and it felt safe. But then it's like, how do I start to welcome other than me into my space? And the
Mm.
reason the fear was there is because other than me in my space had been there since as a young kid. And it was just scary and overwhelming that I could feel the dead. I could feel the troubled. I could feel the darkness. And so my first step, which sounds like it should be really beautiful and safe, was with the angelics. And I was terrified to make connection with them. And I also, just a little bit before that too, I remember my best friend at the time, and this is in my early 30s at this point, had given me a tarot deck of the goddesses. And I hid that in my basement for years. She gave
Wow.
that to me in my 20s. It scared me so much. Tarot terrified me. So anyway, there was just all of this there in my field, but there's a curiosity. It's like, I don't want to live in fear. I don't, like, I know this is my path. And so I was part of this online business school, B school, as most entrepreneurs follow things like that at a certain point. And they had this silly little thing of like a ritual to call in 4 archangels. And they're like, if you agree to this, they will be sent to you, which I knew was silly because like nobody needs to send you angels. But I'm like, this feels like a little recipe I can follow. And there was a whole 12-day thing. I don't remember what, but the culmination point was one night opening the door of your house for them to come in. And so I did all the things. And that night I'm at my door and I'm so scared because I don't know what's going to happen. And I open it up and there was a blast of energy that felt like heat and it almost knocked me over. And
Wow.
I was like, oh my God. And then it was done. I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad. So then I started to sit with them. And there are 6 that I work with regularly, but the one that I really have called in as a primary guide and ally is Archangel Michael, who's familiar to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I started to sit with him and in a meditation one day with him, and I don't remember anything else other than he gave me the name Seraphina. And I started using it right away, even if it felt like weird or I wasn't raised with spiritual parents. They always kind of like frowned down at hippies and I'm like, oh God, I'm going to be this person who changes her name. Anyway, but I started using it and it's been not only a connection with him, but a connection to part of my soul aspect, to who I am as carrying this flame of the seraphim.
Mm.
And it's that fiery, passionate flame, the word of God. And it, to me, is the temple that I've recently sort of consecrated for my work is Sancta Sera Lumina, which is the sacred light of the seraphim. And so there's an embodiment piece that's happening with them. But to get there, I had to traverse all of this fear and terror and then start to welcome spirit in that way. And then I started to build trust with spirit, with Archangel Michael, and all the ways he's shown up since in my life to help me in my work. So that's a long way around to answer your question. But I think a lot of people, they do have fear. And there's
Yeah.
fear because it's in the collective. there's legitimate fear too. And then it's programmed in all of the media that we watch and that we grow up with. Like it's a lot of fear based when it comes to paranormal. So,
Yes.
confronting that in ourselves and in the collective, I find is not for everybody, but I think for those of us who have known the dark from a very young age, yeah, there's something that has to be overcome there to start to trust and invite that in to our life and to feel safe with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it's so important because we could see fear as also being a shadow, not just our own shadow, but the shadow of the collective, of
Mhm.
our society. Um, and doing that work, going into the unknown, as well as persecution, right? We were speaking about
Yeah.
that earlier, the persecution through lifetimes and
Yeah.
lifetimes of
Hmm.
those of us who have done this work. So
Hmm.
no wonder we're born with the fear. Oh, we're here again, right?
Yeah. Here we go. I keep
And
being told, not this time, though, not this time.
yeah, and I feel also that's, you know, I think that's also an important part of discernment I'm finding is like, is this fear-based or is this love-based?
Hmm.
And so having become familiar with the fear, it then helps by contrast to understand what love is
Hmm.
in its the truest
Yeah.
sense of that word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Exactly.
essence.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you've got more stories to share, Maria.
Shall I go?
You
Because
you can
that
you can
that
go. I'm
segues
just loving
beautifully.
I'm loving all the wisdom that you're sharing alongside the stories as well, those.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that segues really beautifully into another one, which I'd shared with you a little bit in email exchange, was this following this priestess path. And I found, even though my awakening really started with the Mists of Avalon, I knew that wasn't my soul path when it came to like the Celtic lineage, even though I'm of Celtic descent on my mother's side. It wasn't the spiritual lineage. And it became clear that it was through Isis and Mary Magdalene and holding some of that creational Sacred Heart divine union energy of Yeshua and Magdalene. And so I knew I needed to take a pilgrimage to the south of France to visit some of the sacred sites. And of course, I was very scared to do so, um, but prepared myself to go. And it was a beautiful experience. But the story that I want to share, because there's so many, was I ended the pilgrimage there's a modality called Koya, and it's a sort of a dance movement, spiritual dance movement modality. And a woman who I love, Betsy, oh, she was Blankenbaker, but I know she's changed it now. So if she somehow hears this, I'm sorry, Betsy. But Betsy is an author. And she was doing a writing and Koya retreat in the south of France. So I built my pilgrimage around that to end there. And while I was there, so some of the stories, a lot of the stories that live inside of me connected to the darkness have to do with childhood sexual trauma, and not physical per se, but energetic and also spiritual, the way that those energetics can move through. And that's a whole bigger conversation. But we were writing around our stories around sexuality and healing trauma around that. And the Magdalene is very connected to empowerment around our sacred sexuality. So while I was there, I at night could not sleep. I had so much fear and terror, and I just felt all these energies around me. And I would call in Archangel Michael to help clear the energy and to help me um, feel steady, and nothing was working. And I think it was like the second or third morning, we got up to go do our dance. And as we're moving, she said, "Can you let the fear in?" And I just took a deep breath and I said, "Okay, like bring it in." And I felt like 1,000 knives, daggers coming at me. Like they were all going to kill me. And I got so angry as I danced and felt all this intrusive energy around me. And we went on to break, and I was so mad. And I gathered my sacred tools. I had incense and crystals and candle, and I marched out into the field, and I was yelling out loud. I'm like, we are going to do this. Like, and I was swearing. I'm like, it ends here. I am tired of being fed upon. I'm tired of being ghosted. I'm tired of all this energy up in my space that's been here my whole life that wants to like kill me, was the feeling. And I had
Mm.
so much anger. And I sat down and I lit my candle and incense, and I called in Archangel Michael. I'm like we're going to battle. And he just opened up my heart to love. And I was like, what? And he started escorting all of these dense, troubled energies and moving, psychopumping them. So elevating the
Mhm.
troubled dead, moving them through this portal of love to the other side. So they no longer were in my space. And I just sat there in such awe and wonder. I'm like even the troubled dead, even evil, so to speak, everything is looking for the orientation point back to love. Everything. We're born of love. Like all of creation is a love story between divine mother, father, right? It's even the densest, darkest pieces of ourselves or entities or whatever. That's the way home, is through love. And so that just, I don't know, it washed me clean. It washed me clear in
Yeah.
that moment of like, oh, if something is up in my space that feels scary, it's in need.
Yeah.
And I actually have agency, I have sovereignty, and I have a voice. And then I also have helpers to tend to that. So I don't have to live with it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, and that's so also, I'm curious, had you done any psychopomp work before then? Was that your first
Well,
experience of it?
I thought so. I didn't know I'd been doing it since I was very young.
It's often the way, right?
Yes.
With the old souls.
Yeah. Yeah. No, my life really started to make sense as I started to follow the fear and face these things and open up, yeah, to spirit. And yeah, it all started to make sense. And I subsequently did ancestral medicine. There's a particular modality I studied in to become a practitioner, and then on top of psychopomp training. So then that's when I was like, oh, that wasn't my first rodeo. Okay. This
Yeah,
is why they're all up in my space, because they're like, you know how to do this. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
exactly. I get, you probably have a similar experience. People coming and you're like, oh, you're a natural psychopomp. And they're like, because yeah, they have that experience. But
Yeah.
I just love as well how you were taught how to do that work in that moment as well
Mhm.
through with Archangel Michael. I mean, that was training, that was spirit training, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then sometimes, and then that can be confirmed to
Mhm.
us. Um, and I guess then as we realize, oh, so that's what that was, and so now I've done the training, and then perhaps we less need the training because we recognize that training is then direct from spirit.
And I'd say too, like working with different teachers, one of the things that never sat well with me was when I'd done like an early days training on channeling with the angelics and working with different people, different trainings. They were always like, just orient to the light. I'm like, what about the bad stuff? And they're like, no, 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 you don't have to worry about that. And I just was never satisfied because I'm like, again, like in hindsight, I'm like, I've been surrounded by the bad stuff. Like, don't tell me to just like focus on the light. I'm like, that's not my journey. I'm like, and I don't want to start channeling something that isn't of the light. Like, how do I know? Like, I had so many questions.
Mm.
So then doing the ancestral work with my teacher in the United States, Daniel Four, at the time. I'm no longer affiliated with his organization, but I was for several years. And that training was very much on how do we create a safe ritual space. And what that created for me was bringing in more guides, more allies, a robust system so that I'm not the one doing the work ultimately, but there's ritual safety in place so that when really troublesome stuff comes in, I know how to handle it. And so yes, it's like I knew, but I needed those tools too to really give me the confidence in how to navigate those spaces that naturally come to me.
Yeah, it's learning what the structures are, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's important
Hmm.
early on in our path, and then we can start to then, when we become more aligned and more confident, we can then start to create our own structures.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and then as I did the training, I realized I already had a lot of those structures in place, but didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah,
So again, going back to that, oh, I do a lot of things, and it's in hindsight that I understand what I was
and
doing.
this is the kind of the back and forth of
Mhm.
guidance, of not knowing why
Yes.
you're doing something the way you're doing it, and then finding out, and it builds the confidence because you're already doing it, and then you go and take a class on it and find you're
Yes.
already doing it.
Exactly. Yes.
And it's like, okay,
It's so good.
that's, and yeah, and so that's, I feel the importance of doing these things, then we don't really understand why we're doing them,
Yeah.
but it's all part of that deepening trust, and then we get
Mhm.
the confirmations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that trust isn't just trust within ourselves, but it's trust in life as
Mm.
well. And we were speaking to this a little bit, earlier, this uncertain times that we're in. And we're here to build, create. I mean, I am, a lot of us are, you are, a new paradigm, if you will, from these structures that no longer work, that have been built on competition and extraction and greed and power over and under dynamics. And for me, one of my teachers, like the way she explained it to me, that I feel is at the heart of the Christ of Magdalene teachings, is elevating to our sovereign I am presence, which is leaving that paradigm of perpetrator, victim, and martyr or savior.
Yeah.
And so trusting that there is a current that is carrying us forward. Like there's a reason you and I have the configuration that we have, and we followed the path that we are here to follow. And it's because there is something else calling us forward. There is a divine plan in place calling us forward. And so it's trusting ourselves, learning how to listen, but trusting the bigger current of life that we're being carried there. And I can say that, and it sounds beautiful, poetic, whatever. And living that is like, I have a little tantrum, like big tantrums regularly, because like how I'm action oriented. I want to do, but this path of listening and trust is like, I'm not in charge. So there's a divine timing to all of it.
I remember, you remind me, and um, someone asked me once, how do you talk to spirit? And I'm saying, what in the fuck? You want me to do that now? It's like,
Yeah.
she's like, seriously? And I'm like, well, yeah, I argue with them. Why should I?
Exactly.
Why should I
Well,
just do what I'm told
yes.
blindly?
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes I
Yes.
negotiate, right?
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
the human part of this team.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's such an important point because we're also in that those power dynamics, we're getting out of spiritual hierarchy as well. right? And we might put someone who channels on some kind of like pillar of like, wow, or someone who talks to the angels or this and that. And it's like, we actually all have that capacity. Some of us, it's dialed up a little bit more than others, but we all have that capacity. And they they have a different vantage point than we do, but it's not better than.
Yeah.
And I remember once having conversations. And also, when I say conversations, that doesn't mean like we are talking right now. A lot of people, when they hear about people sharing about their extraordinary perceptions and gifts, they think it's like in the movies. For some people, it might be, but it can be a lot more subtle. So, in my conversations with them, which is like asking a question and waiting for some kind of imprint, image, understanding, I remember having an argument and saying, you've never been in a human body. Angelics have never been embodied. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. So that sounds great on paper, like what I had just shared about following the current of life, but the lived reality is very different. So like, let's pause for a
Yeah.
second.
I need to eat. I need to sustain my body,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's like, you want me to go on pilgrimage and sit? Well, then, okay, like give me some money to pay my bills.
Yes.
Yeah, like so yeah, listening, but also we're divine and we're human, we're animal and we're something more. So balancing that. And again, there's no more special or hierarchy, whatever we might be connecting with or channeling. We're all a part of the same web of life and creation, just different vantage points and wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, really. So I know you've been on many pilgrimages and both in the world and within. And so I know you have at least one more story to share, Maria.
Okay, so the one that it's just like been bugging me. It's like, okay, you got to tell this one. It's a little more like it's later maybe. It's really fun, and I think I need to rehear it myself right now because I'm in a phase of having a hard time trusting the path.
Mm.
And so when I first met my ancestors, um, which I didn't want to do. I'm like, you guys left me with a lot of shit downstream. Like, why would I want to get to know you guys? You're a mess. Um, but somehow they got me in through the back door. And the first lineage I connected with were my father's father's people, or sorry, my mother's father's people, and they're from Scotland. And
Mm.
after I had done the process that I'm trained in and really opened up to the well ones and the well seated, settled, healthy dead, and did a lot of lineage cleanup, I was in a place in my life similar to now where I'm like, what is the next step? And I felt like I needed to put a lot of effort into my work, into my business, and I'd taken some time off. And so I came back and I dropped into meditation with them. I'm like, okay, show me what the next step is, thinking like I got to write something, I got to do some kind of action oriented thing towards work. And they said, go swim. And I'm like, go swim. And with that was an image of all of these gold coins pouring out of my abdomen. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go swim. And so in Canada, we have a gold coin called the loonie, which is our $1. It's not a bill anymore. It's this gold coin. And so that's the picture I was getting out of my abdomen, all these loonies coming out. And I went to the swimming pool and I went swimming. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a good descendant here and do what I'm told. And then as I left the swimming pool, there was a gold loonie right behind my tire of my car.
Oh,
And I just stopped and I'm like, okay, you're real. Like, I get it. And that that stayed with me. It's like,
mm,
not only are they with me and helping to clear things in the background that I'm not aware of, it's also trusting that the next step is likely, it's not a linear step, where we're going next, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not if I do A, B, and C, it leads to the next, you know, letter in the alphabet. It's going to be all over the place to get to where it is we're going and this meandering path. And I ended up leaving my marriage shortly after that and walked away from everything except for my kids. And when I'd be in prayer and meditation with them, they would always say, just keep doing what you're doing. We're going to take care of the rest.
Mm.
I was like, okay. And I really leaned back into that. And then subsequent, that was about 7 or 8 years ago when that first happened. And I've leaned into that ever since. And I feel like a lot of us are in that position now again. It's kind of like, it feels like something's on hold, something's slowing down.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, can I just lean back and know that there's so much support here, whether I know it or not, whether I'm connected to it or not. But the next right step is going to show itself, but it's probably not what I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so important because it can be something as simple as following that instruction to go swimming.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and also that handing something over to spirit and saying, okay, I'm going to get on with the human stuff here, right? You take care of the rest. It's such a
Yeah.
powerful practice
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do that and trust that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And when we do that, like it's getting out of the way so
Mm,
that I'm going to use the word miracle, you know, miracles can happen, but like we're only in charge of so much. And there
yeah,
is so much working for us in the liminal spaces that we aren't aware of. You know, even if we are listening and tapping in and getting a lot of information, there's just so much happening that we're not aware of. And I think that's really, yeah, I need to remember that right now too.
yes. At a time when we're being taught patience, right?
Yeah,
And having
yeah.
to, I think what I'm learning with patience is that sense of waiting, but also being careful what my language is around that, and doing the things that I love.
Yeah.
It's finding the spaces within that, and it's like trusting that I don't always have to be productive in the conventional sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to be both business
Yeah.
owners. So, in that conventional business owner sense, we can just go in and go swimming.
Yeah. It's like that's going to open up something else. And then when you're swimming, you're connecting with the spirit of water. Well, what does water have to say? You know, like there's just so many.
Mm,
If we can trust that next step is taking us to where we need to go, even if it feels like it's sideways or backwards or nonsensical. I don't know. I've been doing this long enough now that I can trust that. I can trust that.
yeah,
It does always work out somehow. Not necessarily what I want, but what I need in order to grow in the way that I'm here
yeah.
to grow.
And it can be challenging as well, because often it
Absolutely.
challenges those parts of ourselves that still need a bit of refinement.
It's so challenging. My daughter and I, she just turned 18. We often have a laugh. It's like, I think we forgot to read the small print on our soul contract before we came down here. Like, I don't think this is what I asked for. It's like, oh, no, I think you did, Mom. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, it's how it translates into human form, right?
Right? Exactly. It's like, I didn't know it meant this. And we
Maria, it
just have to
is,
have humor about it all.
yeah, and the humor is what helps to elevate us, right?
Yeah,
To find,
exactly.
if we can find the joke, the
Yeah,
cosmic joke,
not
and
take it all so seriously.
it can help to raise us out of, raise our frequency, raise us out of that
Mhm.
feeling sorry for ourselves or whatever it
Yeah.
is that might come up.
Um, is there time to ask you a question?
Yes, okay.
I'm curious to know what moved you to do the podcast. What is the impetus? What's moved you to start the series?
It's something that I've always wanted to do, because though I like, we were talking earlier, sort of, I like my own space, I like my solitude, but I also enjoy talking to people.
Mm,
But I live in a remote area and there's not a lot of people around. So it's something that I've always wanted to do from that, because the job that I left, Spirit guided me to leave. I was managing volunteers, and so I got to talk to lots of people all the time,
mm,
because I was, having these conversations, and I guess I kind of miss that in in some way. And so there was that, and also I feel I do a lot of writing, or I was doing a lot of writing. I feel the podcast is taking over from that, and I write these stories, and I realize that we were talking earlier about how it's more than our words, and I feel the written word can be misinterpreted far more than the spoken word.
mhm,
And I felt I wanted to be able to share some of these stories through the spoken word,
mhm,
but I didn't want to do it on my own. And I'm also aware that I'm a kind of responsive person.
mhm,
So I like these things to come up in conversation. I like,
mhm,
you know, um, it feels a bit more natural to have these conversations, and have these conversations available for people who are interested in them for whatever reason. So
mhm,
so that was the underlying theme. And it'd been kind of rumbling on for some time. But I'm kind of like, well, I'm doing this, and this, and I haven't got room for a podcast. And then there was another creator who sort of was sharing, saying that she'd just started her podcast. It was something she wanted to do for a long time, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, good for her. And then Spirit was like, yeah, and your one's going to be called Following. And I'm like, right, I don't have time for that. And then a few hours later, they're like, now go and record your first episode. So I did that, and it was about a month after that then I was that it all started to write. Now's the time to
mhm,
start asking people to start the podcast
mhm.
for real. And that's when I first uploaded the little introductory video that I did, that I thought it was just going to be audio and there I am on video as well. So
Amazing.
yeah, so that was it. And I just feel these stories for me as well, these stories of these that we have from our journeys of following Spirit, of that evolution of our path, just fascinate me and inspire
Mhm,
me. I love listening to other people's
mhm,
stories too. So
mhm.
yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. And there's a reason I needed to ask that, and I don't know why. And it will be revealed when you look back someday and like, oh, now I really understand why I had to do this.
And I've got another little story around that. Is during my shamanic training, um, my the my shamanic teachers are a couple. She's Brazilian and he's Scottish, and he works with the cards more. And we were doing this thing. He said, "I'll pull everyone a card," and he pulled Storyteller for me, and I was
Mm,
absolutely devastated because for me, being brought up like in an Irish family, Storyteller means you're a liar,
mm,
you know.
mm,
And it was like, oh, and then because I've been helping them with some work, and then my teacher said, no, Tanya, she said, because I was helping them with some funding applications, she said, look at what you're doing on the funding applications. You're telling our story.
mhm,
And I hadn't made that connection before. And it was
mm,
like, oh, and then I started to realize, and other people started to say it about, oh, I love your stories, Tanya. And it was like, I started to realize, oh, in some way, I'm a storyteller.
mhm,
And so that's really learning to accept that, because especially
mhm,
with my family, of that idea of being a storyteller is a liar, and then having to realize that actually there's a lot to be shared through story.
mhm. Yeah, there's the tall tales, and then there's truth, the truth story, right? The truth
Yeah.
teller, the truth speaker. Yeah, that's
So thank you for
beautiful.
asking.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've been asked a question. Well, maybe not, but directly, yes.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Maria. I've really, really enjoyed our chat today, and I hope we
Me
have
too.
some more. Maybe you'll come
Yes.
back in the future.
Yeah, I would love to. I love sharing stories as well. So
Okay,
yeah,
wonderful.
it's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Okay, and thank you to everyone who is listening and or watching. We hope you enjoyed our stories here today, and sending you much love from my heart to yours.